Hello and welcome to Plant CEO. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome Andy Shovel, who's the co-founder and co-CEO of this. Hey Andy, how you doing?
Hi, yeah, thanks. I'm all good. Thank you very much for having me today. We've got our company party and sort of final year, end of year rather meeting today. So it's all happening.
Awesome. What you got planned for your Christmas party?
So I think it's a kind of murder mystery themed party in central London, and it's I was told the dress code is kind of Cluedo.
Nice.
Um, and I was also given a hint that the plot of the murder mystery heavily features me, and I very much doubt in a flattering way.
Yeah. Are you
So
dressing up as one of the Cluedo characters?
I'm just going in my trusty M&S black tie suit. So yeah, I'm not being too creative.
Very good. Sounds fun though.
Yeah, I think so. Our people team are amazing at throwing parties. So it should be a good one.
Awesome. So, yeah, thanks for coming on the show. And it would be great to start with obviously your motivation actually in what inspired you to create this, especially, from your personal experiences from being an entrepreneur beforehand.
Yeah, sure. So I think the motivations at the beginning. So beginning is about 2017-ish when we first started looking into this business. Myself and Pete, my co-founder and co-CEO. The motivations at the beginning were, to be honest, fairly sort of unromantic, not that kind of principled really. There was a general kind of prevailing principle we had of like, okay, well, we want our next career move, next business we start to be sustainable in some way. So there was that kind of fundamental foundation. But beyond that, it was more just, well, this is a really exciting area to get into. We looked at what was happening in the States with Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, which are now kind of swear words because they haven't really delivered on, a lot of their promise. But nonetheless, they were doing really quite, in our opinion at the time, ingenious, inventive, disruptive things, both in terms of product and brand. And we looked at that, and then we went back to the UK and we looked at sort of the old guard that were here, Linda McCartney and Corn, etc. And we felt like there was room to do something more innovative and exciting. So that was probably the main kind of logic we had for getting into the space. And it was only later on, kind of incidental to work, really, that I became personally very mission driven and I became plant-based and very focused on sort of animal rights and that sort of thing. But at the beginning, it wasn't really about that.
You had your first experience in sort of the restaurant trade, which was a company called Chosen Bun, which was then acquired by which company was it acquired by actually?
So it was acquired by a large fast food operator. They're the second largest Domino's pizza franchisees in I think Europe actually. So yeah, they don't really have their own brands. They sort of normally franchise. And when they bought our business, it was I think the second time they tried to roll out a sort of like smaller brand rather than franchise. And so yeah, that's kind of they're not a company that anyone would have heard of, but that's who bought us. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was basically a fast meal delivery service before the fast delivery services were out there, like Deliveroo, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of funnily enough, we had Will Shu, who's a founder of Deliveroo. He came into the office to our, I mean, the office is a very pompous way of putting it. It was a basement below a fast food shop. And he came into our basement when it was just him and I think maybe three delivery riders at Deliveroo. And he just started and he was basically seeking advice because he'd heard that we were very, very quick at delivering food, which we were. It was like 14 minutes average from kind of phone down to food at the door.
Wow.
We focused really hard on that. But we met him, and I remember when he left, Pete and I both kind of looked at each other and went, "That bloke's got no chance." And now, of course, it's a multi-billion-pound company.
Amazing. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so yeah, it was it was a sort of think of it as a sort of really, really tiny version of Domino's, but for burgers. That's kind of what we wanted to create because at the time you couldn't really get a good burger delivered at home. It wasn't vegan; it was meat based. So it's before I had a big turnaround in my personal kind of views about food and animal welfare and things. But yeah.
Tell me about that turnaround that you had in your own views, and how did you reflect on the fact that you also sold quite a lot of meat burgers then?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing I'll probably take the last thing first, the second thing first. I think most of us, if not very nearly all of us, had kind of a life before veganism or before, holding these views about animals. And so I suppose I reconcile it but by telling myself that we've all kind of been there to some degree. My degree was probably worse than most in the fact that I sold meat for a living. Fortunately, I've sold a lot more plant-based meat than I sold meat, which is a good thing. So hopefully I'm net constructive. And in terms of the sort of journey I went on, it started off with a video someone showed me. So it was a girl I was seeing way back in 2016-ish, I think. And it was a video of chicks, like 1 day old yellow fluffy chicks on a conveyor belt, quite densely packed on this conveyor belt, looking all kind of sweet and cheeping and looking for their mum, I guess. And the conveyor belt, the camera panned, and then the conveyor belt just ended, and all the chicks were being fed into a grinder alive. And there were bits of beak and foot coming out of the grinder. And I was really shocked by this. And I thought that this must be some kind of like extreme snuff video that I had been shown. And then my girlfriend at the time told me that this is what happens in the egg industry. She wasn't vegan herself. I think she'd just been sent it and was just like sharing it with me. And she said, this is what happens in the egg industry to male chicks because they don't lay eggs. And that's what started off my journey, because I was really shocked by it. And I immediately determined that I wasn't going to buy eggs from the supermarket ever again. And then over the course of I then became vegetarian very shortly afterwards, and then a couple of years of vegetarianism. But then I was sort of learning more and more about how the dairy was, produced and what happened to the animals and everything else. And I sort of made peace with the fact that I'm going to have to give it all up because it's all cruel and I don't want to sponsor it. So quite a conventional sort of journey to caring about animals. I think it's probably, speak to most people you interview, I'm guessing, is probably similar type of journey.
Correct, yeah. It's normally some sort of, I would say definitely the animal rights component of it, sharing of what's happening in factory farming is definitely a good trigger point for then you to go and investigate and research further, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, kind of gone full circle now because as hopefully we'll talk about in a bit, I'm starting this animal rights focused charity. And the first big project I'm going to take on is going to be the culling of male chicks in the egg industry. And I'm going to seek to get the law changed to stop it. So hopefully I'll have a hand in ending the practice which first got me on this journey in the first place.
That's amazing. How would they stop that? I mean, I don't know if they're doing stuff with genetic modification and stuff like that, where they can predict whether it's going to be a male or female chicken. What would be your goal there?
So the goal is to get the law changed to make chick culling illegal, because it's very, very cruel and unnecessary. And the fix is actually quite straightforward. There's a company. There are a few companies actually in the space who have developed technology which can allow you to scan the eggs for gender. So you get a tiny, tiny needle that goes in the egg. It's all automated. And that can determine from the sort of liquid in the egg, that can determine what gender the egg is going to be, with slightly higher accuracy than the current manual sorting method that's used, which is basically humans doing gender checks. And so sort of 99-ish%, 98% accuracy. And so it's actually totally unnecessary to allow the chicks to hatch, become sentient and feeling animals, and then put them in a gas chamber or a grinder. So we're in real overtime for that practice. So it's overdue for banning.
Is there some countries that already adopted that method?
There are two countries who have banned chick culling, so France and Germany. And they're the only two out of the 200 or so countries in the world who have banned it. But the way they've banned it is quite compromised in different ways for the two countries. So there are lessons for us to learn for when we hopefully ban it. And so yeah, there's the makings of a good blueprint, I think, for us to implement that.
Yeah, that's amazing, and congratulations on starting that initiative. It's really important. It's also nice to see that the first video has really made an impact on you, and it's now down the road of you creating this and doing something about it to make a change, which is awesome.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you. I hope it's successful. It's going to be probably quite a long and painful road, but secretly, I quite like the thought of that. So,
Yeah, yeah. Good. So tell me about your product range. You've catered now for a lot of the meat alternatives that you have now. So do you want to take me through all the products and which ones are really resonating the most? Obviously, I think you started with the this isn't bacon alternatives, but yeah, take me through the whole range.
sure. So we were very much, as you kind of suggest, we were very much the bacon guys for quite a long time. We launched with bacon, plant-based bacon, and plant-based chicken products. And that was it really. We had two plant-based chicken products and one bacon. And then as time's gone on, we've kind of realized in the first couple of years, we've got to make sure that we diversify and have a kind of full service offering, because we could see that the consolidation of the market was kind of coming. And so if we didn't have a full suite of products for people, we felt like we would be a difficult brand for retailers to back, because if you're going to get rid of most brands and keep only a couple, you need those couple to have products to suit all different occasions for consumers. So we have successfully done that now, and now with the
Mm.
sort of bacon, chicken, sausage, burger guys, and then we've got a whole host of like supporting products like lardons or a new roast product, or we've got food to go range, we've got frozen range with chicken tenders, and so there are actually quite a few products. I think in total we've got about 25-ish products across retail and food service.
That's amazing. And as it's Christmas coming up, how's your new roast product coming along?
Oh man, it's such a crazy one because we were, and I was absolutely terrified about roasts because we were developing it and it became quite clear that we were going to have to charge about £6, about £5, I don't know, 5.90, I think it is. And
Yeah.
um and that's a high price point. So
Yeah.
I was actually between you, me, and your listeners, I was convinced it wasn't going to work. And so we launched because we committed to it, but I really didn't want to, and I was convinced it was going to be an expensive failure, and it just had absolutely flown. And it does serve two, so it's not like £5.90 for one. Um, but nonetheless, it's absolutely flown, and it's becoming one of our best-selling products. If you account for the, we've got relatively small distribution compared to, say, our sausages or our bacon. So, like for like, it's doing incredibly well. And yeah, thank God, I was absolutely petrified.
Amazing. How does that cost-wise reflect against turkey, the cost of
Well,
obviously that will
turkey,
feed more, right? Obviously as well.
yeah, well, turkey is, your average turkey is expensive, but you get so much more weight, right? You get several kilos for a turkey. So I think, gram for gram, I think turkey would be a lot cheaper. And most meat products, they do tend to come in cheaper at the kind of basic level. We're not talking about very elaborate meat brands that make all sorts of claims about welfare and everything else, but as you and I'm sure most of your viewers will know, meat is heavily subsidized. It's very artificial pricing. It's not only subsidized, by the way, it's not only subsidized by the government, which is what most people know. It's also subsidized by retailers, because retailers take a much smaller margin on meat than they do on meat alternatives. Meat alternatives, they tend to take between sort of 35 and 40% margin on those products. And then meat, they can take sort of 5 to 15% margin. So they're actually subsidizing it very, very heavily to the end consumer.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I look forward to the day when supermarkets are held a bit more accountable once consumers have got a good choice of alternatives to go for, right? And do something about to get it off the shelves.
Exactly, yeah, and it's particularly irritating when I've got to be careful, obviously, because we've got very important supermarket customers. But some supermarkets who will remain completely nameless, they do make quite big claims about wanting to shift their protein towards plant-based, away from animal protein.
Right.
But behind the scenes, they do very heavily subsidize the animal protein for people, so they're kind of incentivizing without people realizing.
Yeah, that's a shame. Um, so I guess, in terms of products, you've got a huge range, but what's the main sort of common ingredients that you have or and processes that you can talk about
Yeah,
in the
so
manufacturing?
yeah, main ingredients probably pea protein. We also use soy protein as well. And we also use mushrooms occasionally. We tend not to use gluten, so we're a largely free of gluten brand, but we don't call ourselves gluten free because the factories we manufacture in, there's a small risk of cross contamination. But
Yeah.
and then process wise, one of the main processes we use is high moisture extrusion, which is basically using sort of heat and pressure to put in plant protein and then hydrate the plant proteins and then kind of push them through a long screw. This is actually how you make pasta, which is your supermarket bought pasta or something like that. You put it through a long screw and it turns, and then using the heat and the pressure, the proteins become slightly longer in sort of architecture, and that gives you that like fibrous quality like you expect from kind of meat muscle. And we use that. We've got quite bespoke ways of using that technology. Actually, we haven't just got an extrusion line off the shelf and pressed go. We have developed our own proprietary ways of using the tech to get us more fibrousness or more succulence or whatever it is we're looking for. And we also just use processes that are seen in the meat industry as well. So like for our sausage making, the process is actually really quite similar to how you would make meat sausages, just without the animal, obviously.
You're manufacturing it all yourselves versus co-manufacturer, or is it split somehow?
We use co-manufacturing, but we have a bit of a sort of slightly, I guess, exotic way of doing it, which is that we own manufacturing equipment ourselves and we put it in third-party co-manufacturers. We don't always do that, but we're doing more and more of that. We find it's quite flexible because kind of we own the capacity of that line. We also own the IP and how everything's made, so that the manufacturer is not able to just get any old company to make products on our line. And for various other reasons, it's our favorite kind of method, so that's what we do.
Yeah, I guess that's quite a clever way, is because to
Alleviate those discussions on IP, right? If you're owning the process.
Yeah, I mean that's right. As a quite an IP heavy business, you're exactly right. If you go to a manufacturer and say, "Hey, can I use your line, please, to make some sausages?" They go, "All right then," and then you go, "Well, don't let anyone else use it, or don't let anyone else use the method that you're." It's just like it's a difficult conversation, but if you own the line, then as you say, it becomes much easier.
this has been known as a
UK brand and a very successful brand as well.
Thanks.
And you've now launched into Netherlands. That was this year with Albert Heijn, right? Yeah.
That's right.
How's that gone so far? Because obviously that market, I would also say it's very advanced in pushing the plant forward message, I would say.
Another initiative I was terrified about. And so we launched back in, I'm going to say August, September, because I don't remember the exact date. But yeah, quite recently. And so far, so good. Touch wood, if you have any wood around you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, it's gone really well. We just had our first promo and got a massive uplift. Our rate of sale was, I think, around 25 per store per week in across at least 2 of the 4 products. And we're in about 430 Albert Heijn stores. As you say, the Dutch market is advanced. They have the highest consumption in Europe, including the UK, per capita. So per person, they consume the most plant-based meat. And that's a great thing, but also, of course, predictably leads to a lot of congestion in their market. However, when you dive a bit deeper, which we obviously did, the congestion in the market and the competition is a very different shape to that in the UK. It's actually like comprised of sort of like 2 or 3, three really big brand blocks. So in other words, big brands who kind of own most of the category there. And when you go to a supermarket in the Netherlands and look at the plant-based fixture, you'll just see walls of these 3 different colors. Basically, you've got Vegetarian Butcher, you've got Vivera, and then you've got Garden Gourmet, which is a Nestle-owned brand. And it's just like, completely different, because in the UK, we've got a lot of challenger brands and we've got this, that, and the other going on. We've got the tofu. It's just like, it's quite varied. And in the Netherlands, it's much more of a sort of homogenous looking category. So that means that it is big and scary. However, we felt like consumers might welcome the kind of new challenger brand upstart and a slightly different approach to product development that we have to those brands. And so, yeah, fingers crossed that that will be a success. But obviously, we're still in the throes of the first few months, so we're
Yeah.
working hard to make it work.
Yeah, that's awesome though, and it's great that you're there. Are you thinking of going into other markets now that you've seen the successful expansion there?
Well, I would say it's successful so far, but we can't count our plant-based chickens, right? So we're gonna keep focusing on it hard, because I think what we've seen with a lot of other plant-based brands who have been struggling
Grown.
recently, is that they scattergunned their products in all these different countries, just winging packs over here, there, and everywhere, without really leaning in and supporting in a considered and thoughtful way. And I think they've really paid the price. Some of our fellow kind of challenger brands from the UK or Europe, they've either gone bust or they have had financial trouble because of doing that. So I think we're learning from those cautionary tales, and like we're not going to over expand internationally before we're ready.
Yeah, you spoke earlier about the UK being different, and where do you think the stage of this consolidation is at the moment? You know, if there was, I don't know, 15, 20 brands, we're now down to 5 brands or whatever that the supermarkets are listing. Where do you think we are now, especially as some supermarkets are wanting to welcome challenger brands as well?
I think we're probably half to two-thirds of the way through it. There has been quite a cull, but there's more to come. And I think if I were to put my head on the shoulders of a plant-based supermarket buyer at the moment in the UK, I sort of think that it's a real challenging category for them to manage, because look, to put it this way, around 63% of the population in the UK is actively looking to reduce their meat intake. And the penetration of the plant-based category at the moment in the UK is only about 30%. So you've got this enormous contingent of people in the UK who kind of want something, but for whatever reason, the plant-based category is not hitting the spot for them. So I think that, as a category, we're still finding our feet, really. And we have fortunately, our brand has fortunately had success with what we've offered. But, we're a sort of 25 million revenue brand at the moment, which is great after 4 years. I'm not turning my nose up. But there's definitely an opportunity to be a 250 million pound brand in a short space of time if we get the offering right. I've got some ideas, and we've got some ideas for what right could be and what people could get really excited by, that other 30% of people in the UK.
What do you think that could be?
Well,
What's missing for those
I could tell you,
30%?
but I'd have to kill you.
Okay, I'd rather not, because I want to do some more interviews.
No. So basically, like, what I think it could be is something, a range of products we're developing for next year. And I'm not saying it'll be the silver bullet and it'll be the answer, the final word, whatever. I just think it could be an interesting incremental addition to the category, and let's see what it can achieve. But what I'm talking about is, imagine tofu was invented in 2023 or 4, rather than however many thousand years ago. What characteristics would that product have? It would be a center of plate protein. And in my opinion, it would taste great and be unbelievably healthy, much healthier for you than tofu is. Not that tofu is bad for you, but it would be much healthier and functionally more nutritious. And it would probably have 1 of your 5 a day, and it would not be very processed. And all of these things culminate in what our idea is for the next generation of meat alternatives. And so that's something we're working on basically for next year. It's hugely exciting, quite entrepreneurial, quite risky, but if we don't roll the dice, right, what's the point? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is your clean label attempt at, limiting the amount of process. Like if I think of my own journey as well, when, I was vegetarian all my life and then, went vegan. But we did do in the beginning quite a lot of the meat alternatives. Now,
Yeah.
mostly I would say that we have that occasionally, but most of our diet is we're focusing on reducing an amount of processed food that we're buying and adopting more of a whole food plant-based approach of how we eat and how we cook, etc. So I think you're right in that as people have realized that ultra processed food is bad for you as well, even though the semi-healthy ones, that we should be adopting more of this lifestyle approach of how we eat, and have that occasionally, when there's occasions.
Yeah, I think so. And I really think there are plenty of occasions still for meat alternatives. Whether you fancy a treat or you just really crave that meat sensation, or you're entertaining, or whatever it is. I think there are definitely lots of occasions. But for that rainy Wednesday night when you just want something high in protein and really nutritious, that's where our new range could possibly come in. So yeah, I'm personally, I haven't been this excited about something we've done for a good while. I'm really psyched about it, so I'm hoping it's going to be successful.
That sounds really exciting. Looking forward to see what that product will be when you release it. And that will be, do you think that will be 2024 type
Yes.
timeline
Yeah, well, we
you're
plan
aiming for?
and hope to launch it in late next year.
Okay, great. So let's talk about your marketing strategy, especially as, you say that there's definitely these different groups that you need to cater for, whether it's communicating with meat eaters to flexitarians to vegetarians to vegans. What successful strategies have you seen, and are you adopting this with each of those types of groups when you're running campaigns?
Well, we have always said and meant that we are targeting predominantly meat eaters for two reasons. Number one, the size of the opportunity with meat eaters is much bigger than with vegans and vegetarians. And the second thing is you actually are not making a positive difference at all if you're a vegan brand targeting vegan purchasers. You provide more optionality for vegans, so that's nice, that's good. But in terms of taking net more animals out of the food system, you're actually not achieving that when that's your strategy. You're just redistributing the already vegan pound or dollar. So that's why it's so important to target non-vegans and meat eaters, because if you can recruit 100 more meat eaters into eating plant-based food, then you're obviously incrementally contributing to change. And so with that in mind, the marketing styles and I guess approaches we've had have always been on the, well, firstly, the disruptive side when you compare it to other historically vegan brands. And secondly, we've tried to make it really relatable to people who have no sort of ideology about veganism or vegetarianism. And so sometimes we can be, a bit jarring for the sort of long-term vegan consumer. And it's a really difficult tightrope to walk along, actually, because we obviously don't want to alienate any vegetarian or vegan buyers, because they matter a lot to us and they still buy our products and we want to relate to them. But in doing that, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot with the mainstream meat eaters, because obviously that's, as I said, where the most exciting contingent of purchasers is for us.
And
So
can you give me an example of what would be found jarring for a vegan buyer?
Yeah, so we got in trouble with what I would describe as sort of the more hardline end of the vegan community a couple of times. The first time, actually, I don't remember the chronology of it, but one time was we made a video where we recruited 10 or so people who claimed they were vegan, and we basically offered them a chance to earn, I think it was £250 or something like that, to try meat for the first time in many years. And what they didn't know was that the meat was actually this, so we weren't giving anyone meat.
Right.
And so these people, tried it and went, "Oh God, it's so meaty," and they had the kind of reactions that we thought were great. And we put the video out, and vegans went, not all vegans, but some vegans and blogs and stuff really crucified us, because they said, you're misusing the word vegan and calling these people vegan if they were looking to try meat. And they got really annoyed with us. And so, yeah, that's an example of when it sort of can be jarring for vegan consumers sometimes.
What was the feedback from the meat eaters who actually saw that? It must have been semi-positive to think, okay, well, they kind of fell for it, that it did taste like meat. And then, I don't know, did you get any comments from meat eaters about that particular video?
Yeah, meat eaters enjoy that sort of content. I mean, it would go completely over their head that there was any sort of moral issue with it. It's just I think there are some vegan people for whom the sanctity of the sort of church of veganism is more important sometimes than taking animals off the menu. Because our mandate is take animals off the menu, right? We made that video to sell more plant-based food to meat eaters so that we would take more animals off the menu.
Yeah.
But the people who complained about it, I think, were so dismayed at the fact that we had misused a word that they think is should be quite protected and in their eyes not misused. And I do have sympathy for it. And it was a bit more complicated in the end on that occasion because we had a community manager at the time who went a bit rogue on her personal Instagram, and it's kind of a long story, but our community manager ended up saying really the wrong thing to vegans who were complaining, and they shouldn't have been complaining to her personally. And it was all a bit messy. And sometimes in life you have these dramas, and it's just, part and parcel of trying to push the boat out, I guess.
Yeah.
You were going to talk about the second one, were you?
Yeah, the second one was one that you mentioned before our call, which is
right.
When we did an April Fool. It was quite, if I may say, having sort of made it, it was quite well made.
Really? Well, you had me on that one. I tell you that. I don't know if I saw it after April Fools or like I just didn't make the connection towards the end, and then I thought, okay, that can't be real now.
Yeah, it's quite convincing. And so basically we did an April Fool's video a couple of years ago where it was sort of a fake expose, and one of our employees was pretending to wear a hidden camera in our kind of facility, and she uncovered that actually we weren't using plant-based or ingredients. We were using lab-grown meat, sort of cell-cultivated meat, which is a whole new area of protein development that I'm sure you know lots about because you've interviewed people from it. But yeah, so it was a big joke about how it wasn't plant-based at all, and it was all actually meat, and so it did freak some people out, and I think quite a lot of people probably stopped watching because at the end it becomes very obvious that it's a prank because everyone's holding up the toy chicken and like it's all just a big joke. But I think people probably stopped watching when they were quite shocked and appalled. And then we got some complaints at the time. But if given the chance to go back in time, I'd definitely do that again because it was really funny and most people really enjoyed it and thought it was hilarious. And I think it made the press as well. So I definitely do it again because you will get flack from people sometimes if you're pushing the boat out with marketing. It's just one of those things.
On the serious side, what are your thoughts on cultivated meat? Would you ever consider that as a direction for you guys?
I think in the long term, maybe, but we're so far away from cultivated meat getting sort of price parity with plant-based or with animal meat, or conventional meat. So I think we're miles away. I mean, probably 10 years or something. In my opinion, there are problems with scaling up and reaching price parity that if you speak to somebody in the industry, like a CEO of a cultivated meat company, they don't yet know the answers. And if they tell you they do, they are not being truthful. So it's a long way away. I think it could be exciting for pet food at some point, although then you have the problem of price as well, because the pet food is so cheap because they just scrape all the crap off the floor in meat factories. So it's very, very cheap. But yeah, in answer to your question, I am long-term really intrigued, and I wouldn't go so far as to say excited because it's just so far away, but I'm enthusiastic about it.
Can you tell me about your current investors and give us an overview of your funding to date? And additionally, if you're planning future funding, maybe for next year?
Yeah, sure. So current investors, we sort of got all different types of investors on our cap table, actually. So we've got angels, probably got like 25, 30 angel investors. And then we've got some crowdfunding we've done in the past. So we've got a few thousand funding investors. We've got institutional investors, mainly VCs, one growth fund, one corporate from Korea. And so I'd say we have quite a wide spread of different types of investors, most of them quite kind of early stage. We don't really have any very late stage investors yet. So yeah, we've raised a total of 35 million for the business, which is obviously a lot. And I sort of wish it was less, but that's how much we've raised. And we plan on doing a fundraise sort of early next year, but I don't anticipate much more funding after that, and maybe not even any funding after that, because we plan on getting to profitability late next year if we can. That's our goal. And obviously, if we do that, then any funding that comes will probably be more opportunistic if we really see something amazing we want to do. And but fundamentally, we have an ambition to get off the funding merry-go-round quite soon.
Yeah. And is there any of your angels or VCs that you tend to speak to more often than others? Like maybe that they're giving you advice that you need at certain stages that you're at?
Yeah, I think there are one or two. I mean, because they're quite early stage and we're not really that early stage anymore, we don't naturally engage with our VC investors as much because they're quite early stage focused. But there are one or two who are still extremely helpful and we talk to. So like 5 Seasons Ventures is one of our investors. So they're a food specialist VC and they're very, very value adding and super useful. So I speak to them pretty regularly. But yeah, like it just kind of varies investor to investor. I think we're pretty focused on execution. So we don't spend in general that much time, dealing with investors apart from our board meetings, obviously.
Yeah. So where do you spend most
Most of your time these days, you and Pete, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm meeting to meeting. I'm back to back most days in meetings. I'm very rarely at my desk during the day, and the areas. So obviously my title is co-CEO, and so that means that I'll go to lots of forums and I'll get recommendations from different functions and about different things, and I'll be kind of, I guess, the decider off the back of all the recommenders who are in the room, and I also kind of take a sort of creative director role unofficially at the company. I've been the lead on all our creative over the years. And so I spend quite a lot of time with the marketing team devising up new content for us, both video content or social media content or back of pack or whatever it is that needs designing or making. And I work pretty closely with the innovation function. So I'll do lots of product development meetings. And I also do stuff like this. So outward facing, I try and be a sort of ambassador for the brand as well. I also am the sort of front man generally for investment rounds. So I spend a lot of time when we're raising, meeting investors and pitching the company basically. So yeah.
Yeah, just finally, I mean, seeing that you've been a leader and an entrepreneur many times now, are there any sources of inspiration, maybe books or podcasts that you're currently reading or listening to that you can share?
God, fear always shoots through me when people ask this because I don't want to come across like some uncultured oaf. But no, I don't really. I'm really sorry. It's just the most terrifying feeling when somebody asks that, or when they say things like, have you seen any art exhibitions recently that you would recommend? I'm like, shit, no. So I do read mainly through actually audiobooks rather than read, but
Yeah.
not necessarily about business, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid I'm going to be really useless and not be able to recommend anything reading material wise.
Yeah, well, don't worry. I mean, with I guess your knowledge, then let me spin that question into: do you have any advice for any aspiring entrepreneurs who might be listening? Especially on building and scaling
Yeah,
businesses.
so especially on building and scaling, I can give one tip. As ever with the best kind of tips, it's learned the hard way. And what I would recommend is if you're an aspiring entrepreneur and you're thinking about building and scaling, if you start your company and it seems to be going quite well and you're at the point where you want to start scaling, the mistake that I would say almost all of us, if not definitely all of us make, us founders, is that we hire very quickly when there's growth, and we hire generally quite a junior set of people to come and join us, because hiring senior people is expensive and scary and risky, and it takes a long time, and we don't have the bandwidth to do it when it's growing really fast and you're just focusing on execution and fulfilling orders and all the rest of it. And actually doing it that way around and starting off with a load of junior people and thinking about it later is a really bad idea, because you need senior people in place when you grow. And if you don't have it, then you end up picking up the pieces for years, literally years to come. And we are still picking up the pieces because we installed a sort of senior team in the business a bit too late. And so, yeah, like don't fall into that trap. And if I had heard that advice back then, when we first started, I probably would have ignored it. But please don't ignore me if you're listening, because it really is quite painful. And take that risk if you think it's going well. Take the risk to hire expensive senior people and do it right.
Yeah, very good. Good advice. Great, Andy.
So yeah, really looking forward to seeing what's happening with your charity initiative. Have you given it a name, by the way?
Yeah, it's called A Bit Weird.
Okay, nice.
So the whole premise of it is going to be that seeking consensus has been quite a challenge for the animal rights movement, I would say. I'd say, generally speaking, the mainstream haven't necessarily agreed with what they're saying a lot. And I think that they find it quite alienating. So I'm trying to lower the bar to get to consensus with people. And rather than say, isn't this really grave and terrible, and you're terrible if you don't agree, I'm saying, 30 million chicks are suffocated in gas chambers a year in the UK. We think that's a bit weird. If you think that's a bit weird too, then sign our petition. So it's going to be a bit less kind of sanctimonious, a bit less guilt trippy, and try and be a bit more mainstream, basically.
Great, fantastic. And yeah, and then I also look forward to seeing your clean label product next year. I'll definitely be diving into that one too. And yeah, congratulations. I think the focus for you guys is obviously removing animals from the plate, and you're definitely doing that. And it's great to see. And that's the market that we need to go after, basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, congrats.
Thank you so much, and really good to have met you again. And yeah, thanks for including me.
Great. Thank you so much, and speak to you again soon.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.